I hate flying. I absolutely loathe the feeling of stepping into an airplane. No, stepping into an airport, knowing I'm moments away from boarding an aerial machine that will put me in the sky for several hours. Several hours of anxiety, panic, nail-biting tension, shaking turbulence that makes me want to throw up, and it's actually happened in the past. Best part of it, hands down, is the landing. That jolting feeling of the wheels hitting the runway, rattling the seats. It comes along with a sense of relief. It makes me want to go out and kiss the ground, safe at last. And no, I don't care about the statistics. I don't care about how actually safe it is up there in comparison with down here, floating thousands of feet in the sky, in whatever capacity, translates to a claustrophobic nightmare. And filmmakers often take advantage of that fear some people have of flying. Because to many, including me, turbulence equals uncertainty. Uncertainty equals fear. Fear of not knowing what could happen. And when you're up there, you really don't know what could happen. An engine might die, 2 engines might die, your daughter might get kidnapped, the president might get kidnapped, a hostage situation, the pilot dies, a gremlin is tearing down the aircraft, or my favorite, we're gonna roll it, okay? What do you mean, roll? Somehow this is more realistic than this. Anyway, while some films opt for excess and defy boundaries of realism, which really doesn't matter, these are films, they're not real, they're fantasies, some others embrace the restrictions of operatic authenticity. That's the case with 7500.
When I saw the script for 7500...
Okay, Don Jon, 7500. Patrick Vollrath's debut feature film, which follows Tobias, a young co-pilot who's faced with a life-threatening situation in a flight from Berlin to Paris. So not only do you have the element of fear of flight, you also have the high stakes and the pressure put on young Tobias struggling to fight for the passengers and crew's safety, as well as his own. Yet, Vollrath manages to keep his film down to earth by exercising a matter-of-fact, almost mechanical approach to the story he's telling, achieving a sense of hyper-realism. But how? How does he manage to make the audience feel tense, worried, on board with this narrative? What elements does he use? For one, he doesn't allow the story to cut forward in time. Everything is experienced in real time. Aside from a short opening segment, every single cut we experience in the film is continuous. You know, more often than not, when a character exits a location, the editor cuts from a shot of them leaving to a shot of them right outside. Correct? Because why would you want to watch them go down the stairs, open the door, and follow their every move only to get to the outside? Whatever happens between this and this can be filled in by the audience. It's implied, it's not necessary. But in the case of the film I'm showing right now, that's actually what it's all about. Cleo from 5 to 7 uses real time to the specific effect of experiencing the day of our protagonist. All that unnecessary stuff matters. Why? Because Cleo is awaiting some medical test results that will determine whether she has a terminal illness or not. So director Agnes Varda spends the runtime of the film following her every single step, every single routine, kicking off the film at 5 p.m. and ending at 7 p.m. Varda understands that when you're in the position Cleo is, even the most insignificant moments carry a massive weight, because they're often filled with tension. It's a delicate thing to play with on film. It's an ingredient that has to feel like it's constantly on the rise. And once again, the machine-like technique that Vollrath chooses to use behind the storytelling benefits that ever-growing pressure. The first 15 to 20 minutes of the film are actually the habitual activity prior to the takeoff. All customary procedures and a little bit of character setup. We'll learn a bit about the pilot, a bit about Don Jon, and off we go. But we're all aware that if we're watching this movie, we know something's gonna happen. The safety bubble has to burst at some point. And by spending those opening 15 minutes inside that flight deck, bearing every single systematic step of the flight departure, which might initially come off as boring given its dryness and dullness, it's actually helping build up the eventual payoff. So when we get to Tobias, trapped with nowhere else to go, with only so much fuel he can use up, and all the hardships that arise during the flight, well then, of course real-time is an element that will bring about a strain of constant tension. And you know what other element complements this?
Music. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
No, there's no actual music in 7500.
7500.
There's no music in 7500, but there is obviously sound. And this is the aspect that often gets overlooked.
Positive climb.
You're in the hands of a great filmmaker when they know when to apply the effectiveness of music and sound and when not to, which is just as important. The illustrious lack of music in No Country for Old Men adds a layer of realism, hostility, and coldness. The same way the constant ticking clock seamed into the score for Dunkirk provides the sensation that the people trapped in this hellish environment can only stay for so long. Similarly, in 7500,
7500.
nah, fuck it, the hijackers who try to infiltrate the cockpit keep hitting the door with whatever they can, mostly a fire extinguisher. And the non-stop banging sound keeps the viewer aware that there's an imminent threat.
European 162, right heading 060.
And at some point, Tobias is gonna have to face it and deal with it. Sound, used in this way, is a compelling tool that can serve to the film's advantage. A slight move of the camera, a slight thump.
Rick, have you ever heard the expression, the customer is always right?
And you know shit's about to go down. Sound can also be jarring. It interrupts peacefulness and puts you in a state of doubt or dread. And obviously, when a plane is involved, there is the harrowing sounds that come with the gears of the aircraft.
Smooth. Careful.
The airtight pressure noises of the wind, the turbulence, and you know what else aids in making 7500 a major roller coaster of unease? That's right, we never leave the flight deck. This cockpit confines Tobias, and really it confines director Vollrath and limits the scope of his film. That restriction of space produces an effect of constraint. There's a number of films shot mostly in one location. There's been a film shot inside a coffin, but this doesn't hinder 7500. Instead, it's used to its advantage, never going for extreme angles, never actually showing the plane from the outside in, never going wild with visual effects. I mean, truly, there's only so many places he can put the camera in such a tiny area. And this, of course, boosts an atmosphere of claustrophobia, which was the defining aspect that made 7500 such an immersive experience for me. Because, as I mentioned earlier, I hate flying. Now, the fact that I relate that notion to this movie doesn't mean that I'm particularly in love with it, you know, it has its flaws. I mean, the story is just so straightforward and embraces an aesthetic of simplicity that the hijackers themselves have the most generic motivations and purpose you could think of. Some viewers might actually even find it offensive. On top of that, yes, the film is cold and methodical, but to its credit, it doesn't feel impersonal. Granted, they give Tobias a minimal amount of backstory and development, but given that they're trying to stick to this very unique and confined format, they do the best they can. So, yes, I would say that this is one of the standouts of the year, although it's not like we've been flooded with content from new studio releases or festival darlings. Largely because, you know, the world is on fucking fire. But this gains some edge above other titles because, well, not to get too personal, but I mean that's kind of the foundation of this channel, there's a high probability that I might board a flight yet again sometime soon. And not to sound repetitive, but I hate flying. When you watch a monster movie, you're not afraid that a monster will come out and attack you. If you watch a slasher film, you might be slightly afraid of the chance of sometime running into a serial killer, but that's a very slim possibility. Watching 7500, knowing I'm bound to travel by plane simply based on the fact that I have family all over the world and it's almost become a customary thing every year or every couple of years for me, it's truly terrifying to contemplate. No, not terrorists hijacking the plane, not having to roll it, not having to face
monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
The horror lies within the mere action of flying. 7500 is a horror film in the sky, and I liked it. It's good. Give it a try.